You'll explain why it is.
Indeed, Mr. Mayor. 15F1 says that an amendment must not negate the original motion, and indeed this does, because Councillor Shepherd was, as part of the motion, asking Council to make formal representation to the Commissioner. This motion actually invites the Commissioner to a scrutiny committee, which isn't, by the Constitution, the whole Council, and therefore is not actually making formal representation to the Commissioner. It's just a committee inviting the Commissioner, and therefore negates the motion.
Bagot, I'm advised it's an amendment because it doesn't negate the original motion. It's an amendment to the motion. That's the advice I've been given by officers.
Fair enough, Mr. Mayor. That's the officer decision, right or wrong.
Correct? Councillor Clark. The second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to ask Council to support this amendment today. We've seen a 20% rise in crime across this borough. But that's not the real figure. That's the figure of reported crime across this borough. And I'm sure many councillors in this chamber today have heard from their residents about crime that they've been on the end of and they have not reported because they don't have the faith in the police in this county to do something about it. And that ranges from very serious crime all the way through to ASB matters. Now, there's a real concern for residents, and it should also be a real concern for this council. We need to address the increase in crime. We can't dodge the difficult issues, and we shouldn't avoid speaking to our PCC about these issues. Burglaries are just the tip of the iceberg in respect of crime in this county. I've had residents come to me. It was one road, and they suffered 20 burglaries in 1 month in the same road. They are being targeted by organised crime groups. These are organised businesses. We are not talking about kids that don't have time, they don't want to go to school and they're just doing it for fun. These are criminal businesses and we are being targeted deliberately. Essex is being seen as a soft touch for this from East London gangs. Now, there's a lot made of the location of this borough and how good it is for business. Well, that business flows both ways. And it's not just business out to London, it's business from London in here. And let's be honest, crime is a business. Crime pays, that's why people commit it. Now, if they have a clear organised business, a clear structure, and there are clear financial gains, we need to be ahead of this curve. We can't be seen as a soft touch, or the area will go downhill. We can't allow this escalation to continue any further. I attended the PCC meeting with members of the public, and I was frustrated to hear our PCC say that ASB is a low-level crime. Now, I'm not suggesting to this chamber that ASB is on the same level as a murder. I'm not suggesting it's on the same level as a rape, and I'm not suggesting it's going to be on the same level as even a burglary. But for those residents living with ASB, day in, day out, it is a huge issue. How many people here suffer harassment on a daily basis and don't feel like it's a massive issue? It is. I don't like to hear how the PCC has nullified the concerns of these residents. We're here to stand up for those residents, and he should be held to account, and we should tell him the views of our residents, and that is that ASB is a problem. Not just burglaries, not just domestic violence. We need our PCC to come to our scrutiny committee to hear representations of everybody. We need him to address them, and we need this policing crime plan to address the issues of the people in this borough. Because if we don't, we are going to see a severe deterioration in the residents' lives and a severe increase in the crime that we see in this borough. And that is why I'm going to ask you to support the amendment, because it goes further than just burglaries and it addresses all crime. Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think what people forget is there's a revolving door of our legal system. If once the legal system's dealt with a convicted burglar, they're out on the streets in no time, after being given a college education, courtesy of Her Majesty's Prison Service, and that's to make these crimes even more unpleasant for the victim. So that's the next stage I think we need to look at, is dealing with that. But I'm glad we've got Roger Hurst as new crime commissioner. I actually served with him on a committee at County Hall, reviewing the library service in the county. And there's never not been a motion, no one's been screaming about the libraries are closing, because when Roger Hurst was put in charge of the review, he's virtually left every library alone. Even our library down there, he's made it work, taking in extra services. That's his forte. And I think once Roger Hurst has got control of this brief and established himself, he's going to turn this around. And he's going to do a great job. You might laugh, Frank, but you'll be able to ask him yourself at County Hall next week. And also, for the dual hatters here, I don't recall any of you asking the representative of the Police Crime Commissioner for Council County about this particular issue being raised tonight. Not a peep, not a word. Is it because it's getting on to 4 o'clock and they want to dodge the traffic on the 1:30? Who knows what's more their priority? But nobody's talking tonight, Mr Mayor, about the huge investment, the battle that's been to deal with this horrible park night lighting. This council objected to 7 estates going in the pitch black, and I believe it was Councillor Frank, former Councillor John Dornan, who pushed for that. And as myself as a member, I've argued, made the case, and as well as other members have who are on the county, about the benefit of LED lighting. I've even done some planning. And now we're getting LED lights. And what does that involve with crime? If you have CCTV in your property, in one of these 7 estates that will benefit from LED lights, it records far better, makes a clearer image for the police to use to convict the burglar or car criminal or other acts of crime. And out of the 10,000 new LED units, Essex County Council are purchasing, 5,000 of them are in Basildon. Now, I wonder, Mr Mayor, going through you, possibly to the leader, is that just out of sympathy, or do we have some clout as an authority, Mr Mayor?
As Councillor Turner is going to be the last speaker, the last one is indicated, he'll answer that no doubt.
I'll take it later, because I think it's probably important to talk on the motion, which the Conservatives won't support the amendment. I think the original, I mean, we're not actually against the matter being discussed with the BBC. We're not against any of this, because like the rest of the members, we actually want something done about crime in general, whether it's burglary, domestic violence, it doesn't matter. They all tend to be priorities at a given time. And I think the original motion was slightly clumsy, if you don't mind me saying. I think it was, it's full of sort of a bit of political spin on the attacking Roger Hurst. We don't need that. This council does make its voice heard, loud and clear, whether it's at County Hall, the police or the fire. And the chairman of the fire just sits to my left, not a million miles away. But you don't need this type of aggravated motion. It's not needed. What we need to do is we need to be persistent, we need to be persuasive, and we just need to keep banging at people's doors. That's what's required. Now, we talk about antisocial behaviour, but I understand Roger Hurst has that as one of his priorities. Yeah. So why did that come up? I don't understand. I sort of slipped into a twilight zone at that stage, because that's exactly what Roger Hurst is doing. And what you mustn't forget is the considerable budget that is there already to fight burglaries. Now, what we can't do is sit idly by while our communities are being pillaged. That's just not on. So we need collectively to make our voice heard. And this sort of political motion doesn't carry it. You know it doesn't carry it for the Conservatives. But we would like to support a motion as such. So we're not going to vote with that. We've got one that slightly amends the original one, but not much. But let's get with the...
Can we deal with this amendment first before you...
Yes, absolutely. Let's deal with this amendment. Let's kick this out, get back to some sensible wording. And let's do as members are saying. Let's go and talk to Roger.
Yes.
He is very, very agreeable.
Yes.
And I do have, he's only been there since May, but he needs to hit the ground running, and you'll be surprised, Mr Mayor, that he has. The police, like all other authorities, are facing a huge budget uphill struggle. They're no different to us. They can only have so many priorities. But I think with Roger Hurst at the helm, we might actually get some purchase on what this borough needs for its priorities, and that's the important thing. Thank you.
Councillor Bagot, I'll give in.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Some of what I'm going to say actually means that I won't need to speak to the main thing, so you please know
We'll
that.
keep you there.
I was very, very interesting, Councillor Block's passion it came across there. It really did come across. It's the frustration I'm sure all of us feel when we're talking to residents about this as an important issue. And that's why I'm a bit disappointed in Councillor Callahan's amendment, because it looks clever and he articulates that it's better than Councillor Shepherd's, but actually it's not. And when you look at the outcome that he wants from it, it's incredibly weak, because when we have a look at whether the council are going to respond to the consultation, or wait to the full council, or whether the commissioner is going to be invited to a scrutiny committee, which he might deem not to attend because he might be busy, and therefore might never happen, which has got the most weight? Well, the weight is actually the weight of council has more. We've already established that, in fact, there's something like 3 days to get any response in on the consultation, so there's a time frame as well. So let's say we did choose to respond to consultation, we wouldn't under this motion. But the thing I'd like to remind some members, because the police did come here to discuss their priorities less than a year ago, and there were very few members that actually turned up. And that's a shame because of what's been articulated across the board here. The reason that the police said, and I don't necessarily agree with it, that they were going to not have burglary as a priority was because 80% of burglaries plus were down to drugs and people burglarising in order to feed their drug habit. And therefore, by prioritising on drug gangs and getting rid of drugs off the street, the knock-on effect would be a downturn in burglaries. And therefore, they felt the priority was to get rid of the drug lords, the drug gangs, and if anyone lives in London, you know what I'm talking about, and there's drug dealers on nearly every corner, and actually support people getting rid of them, rather than actually attending a burglary, which they said a PCSO or someone else could go, because that's an after-the-fact matter. So there was a logic behind the thinking of the police. Whether I agree with it or not, and what the emotion on the ground is another matter. But it wasn't as if the police just thought, I'll tell you what, we'll have a bit of a laugh, we won't actually investigate burglaries in the future. That wasn't the case. And I think that therefore we really need to be measured and clever in what we're doing. So, you know, we all agree here on the principle that we want the police to do something. We're faffing around on trying to score points by, oh, let's take it to a scrutiny committee, because then I could actually be the one that's invited the chairman to write my next election leaflet, rather than dealing with actually getting something done. And I think that's just a shame. Let's concentrate on getting something that we can all agree with, so we can get a result and an outcome for our residents.
Thank you, Councillor Bagot. Right, we'll now take a vote on the amendment as moved by Councillor Callaghan. All those in favour, please show. All those against? Abstentions? The amendment is lost. We're back to the substantive motion, to the main motion. Councillor Turner wishes to speak to the main motion.
Well, can I move an amendment just to tidy it up?
If you've got it in writing, yes.
I have got it here, look. It's very simple now. It's very, very simple, and I hope that next that can deliver it. Leave the motion as it is with just a few amendments. Where it says fails, as yet. So replace fails with has yet to acknowledge. And where it says the need to include, consider burglaries. Now what that does as a motion, it sets the duck up. And what we can do as a council with collective responsibility, cross-party, is then put that in a letter to Roger that says the unanimous backing of well, yeah, but the letter. It's the letter, not necessarily the motion, because what we can then do through the Chief Executive is the letter that goes with it, actually supported by cross-party councillors, actually then asks Roger to consider it. We can ask him for his reply. Councillor Callaghan can have his day in court, and if he wants to invite him on the basis of his reply. Everybody goes home happy, at least I think they do.
I'm happy to accept that as an amendment, but it's only water in 3
Mr Mayor, speak up.
It's all going to be done on Christmas.
Thank you. Is everyone happy with what Councillor Turner proposed? I mean, Councillor Shepherd, do you may well accept the amendment.
Would you read it out, please, so we can understand what's being said?
Yes, certainly. This council expresses concern that the Police and Crime Plan 2016-2020, currently being consulted upon by the Police and Crime Commissioner for Essex Roger Hurst, has yet to acknowledge burglaries as a policing priority, and resolves to make a formal representation to the Commissioner expressing the need to consider burglaries as a policing priority area in the plan. So if you wish to speak to, if anyone wishes to speak to that, who is seconder? Councillor Hilliard seconded, along with about 3 others. Do you wish to speak? Because it's quite clear, otherwise we could vote on that amendment.
No, I will briefly speak, Mr Mayor, and say that if Councillor Shepherd is happy to accept this amendment, there's only vote.
Yeah. Councillor Shepherd.
Yes,
You're speaking to the amendment, but you know what you think.
Yeah, yes, Mr Mayor, I'm happy to accept that and so
Thank you. Okay, with that, we will move to the vote then. On the, you wish to speak?
No, I thought you wanted us to vote.
Okay. Anxious. On the amendment as moved by Councillor Turner then. All those in favour, please show. All those against, please show. Okay. Right, the motion is carried.